The year 1539 marked a disastrous turning point for the second Mughal Emperor, Humayun. At the Battle of Chausa, his formidable army faced the cunning and strategic might of Sher Shah Suri. The Mughal forces, caught unprepared by a surprise attack, were thrown into disarray. Humayun himself barely escaped with his life, aided by a water carrier named Nizam, who helped him cross the Ganges River. This defeat was a devastating blow to the emperor's prestige and military strength. He retreated to Agra, attempting to regroup and rally his forces for decisive confrontation. His brothers, Kamran Mirza and Askari Mirza, offered little substantive support, their loyalty wavering in the face of adversity. The following year, 1540, brought the final, crushing defeat at the Battle of Kannauj. Sher Shah Suri's Afghan troops once again outmaneuvered the larger but poorly coordinated Mughal army. The battle was a rout, shattering the remnants of Humayun's power in Hindustan. The emperor was now a king without a kingdom, forced to abandon his capital, Delhi Dort. He became a fugitive, embarking on a long and arduous exile that would last for 15 years. His initial flight took him towards Sindh, a journey fraught with peril and hardship. The once mighty emperor and his small band of followers wandered through the unforgiving Thar Desert. They faced scorching heat, a dire lack of water, and the constant threat of hostile local chieftains. During this period of desperate wandering, a glimmer of hope appeared in his personal life. In 1541, Humayun married the young Hamida Banu Begum, who was just 14 years old. She would remain his steadfast companion throughout the long years of exile. The following year, 1542, brought a moment of profound joy amidst the despair. While seeking refuge at the fort of Umarkot in Sindh, Hamida Banu Begum gave birth to a son. This child, named Jalal ud-Din Muhammad, was destined to become the great Emperor Akbar. Humayun, upon hearing the news, had no gold to distribute, as was customary. Instead, he broke a musk pod and distributed it among his nobles, prophesying that his son's fame would one day spread throughout the world like its fragrance. Despite this personal joy, his political fortunes remained at their lowest ebb. His attempts to secure a foothold in Sindh or Gujarat proved fruitless. His own brother, Kamran Mirza, who ruled Kabul and Kandahar, turned from a potential ally into a dangerous rival. Kamran actively worked to undermine Humayun, even attempting to capture the infant Akbar. Betrayed by his kin and with no allies in India, Humayun made a momentous decision. He would seek refuge in the neighboring empire of Persia, ruled by the powerful Safavid dynasty. In 1544, after a perilous journey through the rugged mountains of Balochistan, Humayun and his small retinue crossed into Persian territory. He was received by Shah Tahmasp I, the Safavid ruler, with a mixture of hospitality and political calculation. The Persian court was a center of immense cultural and artistic refinement. Humayun was exposed to the splendors of Persian miniature painting, architecture, and poetry. This cultural immersion would have a lasting impact, influencing the development of Mughal art upon his return to India. Persian artists and architects would later be invited to the Mughal court, creating a unique synthesis of styles. However, the Shah's support came at a steep price. Tahmasp, a devout Shia Muslim, pressured the Sunni Humayun to convert. This was a matter of deep religious and political significance, and Humayun resisted for as long as he could. Ultimately, facing the prospect of remaining a powerless exile, he pragmatically agreed to the Shah's terms, at least outwardly. He also had to promise to cede the strategic fortress of Kandahar to Persia upon its recapture. With a force of 12,000 Persian cavalry granted by the Shah, Humayun was finally in a position to reclaim his lost legacy. His first target was not India, but the domains of his treacherous brothers in Afghanistan. In 1545, with Persian assistance, Humayun laid siege to and captured Kandahar. True to his word, he initially handed the fortress over to the Persians. However, through a clever stratagem, he managed to regain control of it shortly after. He then marched on Kabul, the seat of his brother Kamran's power. After a brief siege, Kabul fell, and Humayun was reunited with his young son, Akbar the Timurs. The struggle with Kamran was far from over, marking a bitter and protracted period of fraternal warfare. Kabul would change hands multiple times over the next few years. Kamran proved to be a relentless and cruel adversary, at one point exposing the young Akbar on the battlements of Kabul during a siege to deter Humayun's cannons. Humayun's resolve hardened, and he eventually defeated Kamran decisively. In a final act of grim necessity to end the constant rebellions, Humayun had his brother blinded in 1553, neutralizing him as a political threat forever. With his authority firmly established in Afghanistan, Humayun began to look towards the land he had lost. Providence intervened in his favor as the Suri Empire in India began to crumble from within. Sher Shah Suri had died in an accidental gunpowder explosion in 1545. His successor, Islam Shah Suri, managed to hold the empire together. But his death in 1554 triggered a chaotic civil war. Multiple Suri claimants vied for the throne, fracturing the empire and weakening its military. Humayun saw his golden opportunity to strike. He gathered his veteran troops, a mix of Mughals, Persians, and loyal Afghans. In late 1554, the invasion of Hindustan began. The Mughal army, led by the capable General Bahram Khan, crossed the Indus River. They faced little initial resistance as they advanced through the Punjab. The capture of Lahore in February 1555 was a major victory, signaling the return of the Mughals. The decisive battle took place in June 1555 at Sirhind. Humayun's forces met the army of Sikandar Shah Suri, one of the main contenders for the Suri throne. The Mughal artillery and cavalry, honed by years of conflict in Afghanistan, proved superior. The Battle of Sirhind was a resounding victory for Humayun. The Suri army was scattered, and the path to Delhi was now open. On July 23, 1555, after 15 long years of exile, Humayun triumphantly re-entered his old capital, Delhi. The Mughal flag once again flew over the ramparts of the Purana Kila. His restoration to the throne marked one of history's great comebacks. The emperor, now more experienced and hardened by his trials, began the work of re-establishing Mughal administration. He brought with him the Persian cultural influences he had absorbed during his exile. Plans were made for grand architectural projects and the patronage of arts and sciences. He sought to consolidate his rule and create a stable and prosperous empire. However, fate had one final, cruel twist in store for the much-tried emperor. Humayun had a deep love for books and astronomy. He had converted one of Sher Shah's pleasure pavilions, the Shah Mandal, into a library and observatory. On the evening of January 24th, 1556, he was descending the stone steps of his library. His arms full of books, he heard the call to prayer from the nearby mosque. As was his pious custom, he attempted to kneel down on the spot. His foot caught in the hem of his robe, and he tumbled headlong down the steep staircase. He suffered grievous head injuries from the fall. The emperor lingered for 3 days, unable to recover from the severe trauma. On January 27th, 1556, Humayun, the fortunate emperor whose life was marked by such dramatic misfortune, passed away. His sudden death once again plunged the fledgling Mughal restoration into uncertainty. The news was kept secret for several days by Bahram Khan to ensure a smooth succession. His 13-year-old son, Akbar, was proclaimed the new emperor, with Bahram Khan as his regent. Humayun's legacy was thus secured not by his own brief second reign, but by the long and glorious rule of his son. His tomb in Delhi, commissioned by his wife, Hamida Banu Begum, became the first great example of Mughal monumental architecture. It was a precursor to the Taj Mahal, a magnificent testament to the Persian influences he brought to India. Humayun's life serves as a dramatic tale of royal vicissitude, of losing an empire and, against all odds, winning it back. His perseverance in the face of betrayal and despair is a remarkable chapter in Mughal history. The long years in the wilderness transformed him from a less experienced ruler into a determined and strategic leader. His journey through Persia was not just a plea for help, but a cultural pilgrimage. The artists and thinkers he encountered would enrich the subcontinent for generations. The administrative foundations he began to lay in his second reign were built upon by Akbar. His story underscores the precarious nature of power in the 16th century. The Battle of Chausa in 1539 was a tactical disaster for the overconfident Mughal army. Sher Shah's forces used the monsoon-swollen river to their advantage, trapping Humayun's camp. The chaos of the retreat from Kannauj in 1540 saw the imperial family scattered. Humayun's desperate search for a boat to cross the river is a poignant image of his fall. The desert journey tested the loyalty of his few remaining followers to the absolute limit. At times, his party was reduced to eating berries and whatever they could hunt. The birth of Akbar in 1542 was a beacon of dynastic continuity in the darkest of times. The ruler of Umarkot, Rana Prasad, offered hospitality, a rare act of kindness in a hostile world. Humayun's negotiations with his brother Hindal for the hand of Hamida were initially fraught with tension. Hamida herself was reluctant to marry a king in such dire straits. Her eventual consent and lifelong loyalty became a source of great strength for Humayun. The decision to leave India for Persia in 1543 was a gamble of the highest order. He was leaving the land of his father, Babur, with no guarantee of a safe reception. The journey was physically demanding, crossing some of the most inhospitable terrain in the world. Shah Tahmasp's court in Qazvin was a dazzling display of wealth and power. Humayun, in his worn travel clothes, must have felt the stark contrast of his own situation. Theological debates forced upon him by the Shah were a form of psychological pressure. His temporary conversion to Shia Islam remains a controversial topic among historians. Some view it as a political necessity, while others see it as a genuine, if temporary, shift. The 12,000 horsemen provided by the Shah were the key that would unlock his return. The campaign against Kandahar in 1545 was his first test as a renewed military commander. Bahram Khan, a loyal and brilliant officer, was instrumental in these early victories. The recapture of Kabul from Kamran was a deeply personal triumph. It was not just a city, but his family and his son that he was reclaiming. Kamran's cruelty, using his own nephew Akbar as a human shield, showed the depths of his desperation. This act likely sealed his fate in Humayun's eyes, making reconciliation impossible. Blinding of Kamran in 1553, while brutal, was a standard political practice of the era to eliminate rivals. It was a sign that Humayun had learned the harsh realities of power. Meanwhile, the Suri dynasty imploded, creating a power vacuum in northern India. The weakness of Sher Shah's successors was as crucial to Humayun's success as his own strength. The advance into Punjab in early 1555 was swift and effective. The local populace was weary of the constant warfare among the Suri princes. The victory at Sirhind in June 1555 was total and complete. Sikandar Suri fled to the hills, his authority shattered. Humayun's return to Delhi in July 1555 was a moment of immense symbolic importance. He had reversed the verdict of Kanauj and restored his family's honor. His focus on administration and culture showed a desire to be more than just a conqueror. He began to organize the imperial library, gathering manuscripts from his travels. He laid plans for a new capital city, Dinpana, which he had started before his exile. His interest in astrology led him to design elaborate systems for governing based on celestial bodies. The fatal fall down the library stairs in January 1556 is a tragic irony. A man who had survived battles, deserts, and betrayals was felled by a simple misstep. His death could have been the end of the Mughal story in India. The quick thinking of Behram Khan in managing the succession was critical. Akbar's coronation at the young age of 13 was a fragile beginning. Yet, it was this beginning that would lead to the golden age of the Mughal Empire. Humayun's tomb, with its grand dome and Sharba garden, set a new standard for imperial mausoleums. It perfectly blended Persian aesthetic principles with Indian architectural traditions. The structure symbolized the cultural fusion that Humayun himself embodied. His life was a bridge between the initial conquest of Babur and the imperial consolidation of Akbar. He endured 15 years of hardship to rule for only a few months. Yet in those few months, he set the stage for a dynasty that would rule for centuries. His comeback is a testament to his unyielding belief in his right to rule. The emperor's personal diary reveals his deep piety and intellectual curiosity. He never lost his love for poetry, even in the midst of military campaigns. The loyalty of figures like Behram Khan and Hamida Banu Begum was his greatest asset. Without them, his return would have been impossible. The story of Humayun is not just of a king, but of a man who faced unimaginable adversity. His failures are as instructive as his ultimate success. The initial loss of his empire was due in part to his own indecisiveness and misplaced trust in his brothers. The exile forged him into a more ruthless and pragmatic ruler. He learned statecraft in the sophisticated court of Persia. He learned military strategy in the harsh campaigns of Afghanistan. His return was not merely a reconquest, but a refounding of the Mughal Empire. He brought a new vision, a new aesthetic, and a new administrative zeal. The legacy of Sher Shah Suri, particularly in administration, was not entirely discarded. The final victory was therefore a synthesis of Mughal and Afghan ideas. The image of him tumbling down the stairs is a powerful symbol of the fragility of life and power. His death was mundane, yet it followed a life that was anything but. The comeback was complete, but the victor did not live long to enjoy its fruits. His son, Akbar, would inherit the throne and build an empire that far surpassed his father's dreams. Humayun's greatest contribution, ultimately, was ensuring that there was a throne for Akbar to inherit. His story remains one of the most dramatic and compelling in the annals of Indian history. From a fugitive in the desert to the restored emperor of Hindustan, his journey was epic. The 15-year interlude was not a blank space, but a period of transformation. It was the crucible in which the future of the Mughal Empire was forged. The final return to Delhi was a moment of quiet satisfaction rather than ostentatious triumph. He had fulfilled his destiny, as he saw it, against all conceivable odds. The emperor's comeback was a personal and political resurrection of incredible proportions.